Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Supptalk Radio. As always, I'm excited today. I had the pleasure of being introduced to my guest from a mutual friend, Alan Heroic Muscle. We kind of chopped it up at Apollo Nutrition, chatted for a few minutes, and I'm like, this is the real deal. We got to get this guy on. His passion for bodybuilding is just like mine. Currently on track for the Nationals. He'll be doing some damage, I can tell you that. Allow me to introduce my guest, Kennedy Anyanwu, and I'm killing that. I'm sorry. Welcome to the show.
How's it going? How's it going, Sean? It's good to finally be back talking to you.
I'm sure nobody has ever gotten your last name right on the first try.
No, you know what? Back in school, when the teacher is like Kennedy and there's a pause, I know it's me. So I just raise my hand or I go up to the front, whatever you want. Just don't butcher it. Just stop at the first name. We're good.
Oh my God. So, Kennedy, I always like to introduce my listeners to you. Give us a little bit of your upbringing. Were you an athlete? Were you a skinny kid to turn to the weights? Like, what got you into lifting and bodybuilding?
So I think I've been through all three phases of the body types. So growing up as a kid, I was actually fat. But when I got, pretty much into school, high school, I pretty much got into, I did a lot of sports, soccer, football, track. I would say like I was more heavy on track. I did 200
Okay.
meters and I pretty much lost a lot. I got skinny. I became a skinny kid. And pretty much towards, junior year, senior year, I realized that I actually wanted to get big. Growing up, people that haven't seen me, I'm pretty much 5'7". I wasn't really the tallest kid,
Hmm.
and you're in a class, that age group where there's a growth spurt, people are growing taller, and so you know, so it got to a point where I felt like people didn't take me serious. You're just
Yep.
you're a small kid, but you're not really strong. You're just there. You're just part of the group,
Yep.
essentially, but there's nothing about you that stands out. And Sean, I hated that. I really hated that.
Really?
So
Okay.
I really did. I've always been that kind of person that wanted to be the best at everything. I know you can't be, but I'll try.
Yep.
So how I actually started with or actually gotten into, trying to get big was actually with bodybuilding. We were in a computer class in high school, and we were actually sharing computers this particular day. And you know how it is. Sometimes you're not really listening to the teacher. I'll be honest. We weren't really listening. We were just
Oh, yeah.
online, browsing or whatever. And me and my friend, we were just like, oh, let's look up like, how to get big or whatever. So we just put it in Google search, and Wikipedia first came up. This was 2008. I remember it was 2008
Yep.
because when I clicked on the link, um, the first guy I saw in there was Mr. Olympia, and it was Dexter Jackson.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was the first person I saw on that. And I with people that I've talked to about this, it could go two ways. You could either say, oh, this is gross, I never want to look like that, or you could
Yep.
be just mesmerized, right? And Sean, I was in the other
Yep.
party. I saw that and I couldn't believe what I didn't even know a human being could look like that.
Yeah.
I said, how is this possible? His abdominals literally look like it was something out of like an, like because we were in biology class too,
Sure.
around that period of time. It's like it was so detailed. I was like, human beings can be that detailed. So I'll be honest, that kept me for a while. It kept me up for a while. And, that was after that, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to see if I can try my hands at getting big. And then I pretty much fell into bodybuilding
Yep.
after that. But if you want to, we can segue into that whenever you want, but I'll explain that from there.
So was Dex the person you were trying to emulate, or was Dex like, wow, and kind of went down the rabbit hole seeing who else is out there?
Yeah. So Dexter was my first introduction
Yep.
into bodybuilding. And this was in 2008. So, it's not like now where there was social media and everything that was, that is so out there with bodybuilding. You really, if you really wanted to know what was going on, you had to join the forums.
Yep.
Or I remember bodybuilding.com was also big back then. So I was a big bodybuilding.com forum guy too.
Okay.
I was on there all the time, and I got introduced to a lot of the guys that were on the circuit back then. Of course, after I found out about that, and I started to look into bodybuilding. I mean, it's 2008. Ronnie Coleman. If you didn't know who Ronnie Coleman
Oh,
was,
hell yeah.
he had finished his Olympia run, but those Mitsuru DVDs and everything, they were
Oh,
still out
sure.
there, right? So I got myself, I went on like LimeWire. I got myself a couple of those DVDs,
Yeah.
and I would watch them, and I would just be like, damn, like this is insane. Like these guys are superheroes. These guys
Yeah.
are gods. That's how I looked at it. Like I remember there was a video, Ronnie Coleman, he was in, I think he had like a yellow Hummer or something, and he's riding down the road and he's got his chicken in his hand. And I'm just like, this guy is he's above us all,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, you know, and, I was a young kid. So, your impression of all, I was like, I want to be like that, but I didn't really know how,
Hmm.
you know? So I just kept going on the forums, and then I started, at a local gym, and there was a local bodybuilder around that time that was in that gym. So I would always just go and ask him questions like, how do you do this and how do you do that? And, I guess at one point he got irritated. So he
Sure.
was like, dude, just come work out with me. Like, just see what it's like,
Yep.
And of course he buried me. I was about 16, 17 at the time. you
Okay.
know he had just he buried me, but it really he taught me how to train. Michael definitely taught me how to train, and I kind of followed that, emulated that, and then I went into my first competition, an OCB competition, the next summer, and I took first in my class.
Wow.
I didn't win overall. Yeah, I took first in my class, and then that was it. I went into college after that, and then I continued with bodybuilding after that. Then I got really serious into bodybuilding because all you had to do was, you know, study, eat. I mean, I was in
Yeah.
the dining halls. They're serving, if you have, the college cafeterias. You told me you had just dropped your daughter off in college. The college cafeterias. I mean, if you want to get big, if you're watching this and you're in college, that is the perfect place to get big. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I would go into the cafeteria. I would get like 4 chicken breasts per meal. I was eating 4 to 5 times a day. You know, you know.
You probably had a limited meal plan then, I would think.
Yeah. I would always run through it, and my friends didn't eat that much. So like towards the end of the year, they weren't using their meal plan. I'll just use theirs. Like so. I did what I could, and looking back, sometimes I think maybe I overdid it. Like 4 to 5 chicken breasts. They're like 6-ounce chicken breasts. That's a little bit
Yep.
too much,
Hmm.
but I didn't know any better. But it really helped me because I started college at about 175, 180 pounds,
Okay.
and within 2 years I was about 210 to 212, and by the end of college I was about 223. So I
Wow.
just kept going up. I just kept going up, getting stronger,
Yeah.
and then I competed after that again during college in my junior year, in the IPL, and I took first there again.
Wow.
So I said, wow, I think, I think maybe I got something with this. I dabbled in powerlifting for a while too, because I was very strong. I was at that point, by the end of college, I was, already hitting 3 plates on a bench. I could squat 5 plates, no
Wow.
problem. Deadlifts, I was very strong. So I was like, if I'm this strong, let me see how I can do in powerlifting. So I went to the USAPL, trained for it with my friend Eric. I took first there too.
Damn, brother. There's a lot of firsts here.
Yeah, so it's my lifting career. It's so weird because I've actually never come second so far.
Wow.
So after that, after college, I, you know, as a young adult, you're still trying to find your way, so I actually took a hiatus from bodybuilding specifically,
Okay.
because I was still trying to find my way, get a job, be a little bit more stable. So I took a hiatus, and after a while, I honestly thought that maybe I wouldn't continue doing this. I just felt that maybe I didn't have what it takes.
Mhm.
Um,
But
and
even with
then
all these
COVID,
first I'm sorry, even with all these first places in your head, you were still kinda second guessing yourself?
I still did. I still
Wow.
did because, you know, and that's what people sometimes, because we're in the social media age now, right? So we see a lot of,
Yep.
young kids that they probably just started lifting for a year and they say they're going to go pro, or they say they're going to do great things in the sport. They're going to be Mr. Olympia, but some of them haven't really seen people on the circuit. They haven't really seen the people that are out there, even the
Yep.
top amateurs that are trying to turn pro. I mean, Nick Walker didn't turn pro his first run at the
Yep.
USA's.
Yep.
That should tell you that there are a lot of top talent out there, within bodybuilding. So I just felt that maybe, I may have something, but maybe it's just not good enough, you
Yep.
know. And I said that, maybe I should just focus on my career, and maybe this is not in the cards for me. And then, Sean, COVID happened.
Okay. All right.
The big C happened,
Yeah.
and that was the first time in my life I hadn't trained for 5 to 6 months straight because I had no access to a gym at all.
But you weren't doing, like, anything in the house, didn't buy rubber bands, nothing whatsoever to kinda acclimate?
I'm all or nothing. So I started with
Okay.
that.
Yep.
I started with that, with the bands and the push-ups. I was doing all that. And then I mean, I'm benching 315 in the gym, going to
Yeah.
push-ups. It's just not doing anything for me. So
Yep.
I hated it. And I said, you know what? If I can't do this the way I want to do it, I'm not going to do it at all. So I stopped.
Okay.
And that was when I realized the saying is really true. You don't appreciate what you have till you lose
Amen.
it.
Yep.
And that was when I realized, as I saw my body in front of me start to literally disintegrate in front of me,
Okay.
I realized that I had done enough to be worthy to at least give it a shot.
Yep.
I didn't want to be someone that, looking back, by the time I was in my 50s, 60s, saying, if only I tried, maybe I should have
Yep.
tried it. So I said, you know what? Once this is done, the pandemic is done and gyms are back open, I'm going to give this a run. And I'm going to give it a run like none other, and when I'm done, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to say, you know what? At least I tried.
Exactly. Won't be that what if in your mind.
Exactly. And that's what happened. So last year, I started prepping for a show. And this time I said, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna go where the top talent is. I want to compete with the best of the best.
Yep.
So I went into the NPC, and I hired a coach. It was my first time ever using a coach. I had never worked with a coach before.
Okay.
Um, and I hired a coach. His name is Nick Bono from Team GPS. We still work together today. A great guy. And he took me under his wing and he said, "Listen, I think you got what it takes." Because I was the self-defeating type where I was like, I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I can
Mhm.
do this. And he told me, like, listen, you got what it takes, but if you have to put in the work to see if this will happen. So I said, okay, we'll give it a run. So we did a prep, which I'll probably never do that kind of prep again. It was
Okay.
it was a 28-week prep.
Oh, wow. So at that point, though, were you trying to build? Because you probably weren't that out of weight that you need and overweight that you need 28 weeks.
So keep in mind, we were coming off COVID.
Yeah.
So I needed to recomp one, right? I needed
Okay.
to recomp to get back to where I was. And then I needed to diet down, because if I had
Yeah.
just dieted down, there's nothing there
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
diet down. So I needed to put on a little bit and then start to diet down. And
Okay.
that's what we did. That's why it took that long. So at the end of it, we went to the Delaware State.
Yep.
And then Todd Howe's show. He puts on a great show over there. Shout out to Todd Howe. And I competed there, and then I came first again, and then I took overall
What
at the
did you
show.
do in it at that? Was that a middle or light heavy, or what'd you compete at?
I competed as a heavyweight, so
Oh,
I
heavyweight.
competed
Okay.
Yeah, I competed at 217
Okay.
pounds. And you know, Fred Biggie Smalls, he was at that show, and he pulled me aside after, and he said, "Listen, you got what it takes. I think you should go to nationals. I
That's a
think
big
if you,
endorsement, dude.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was like, wow. Keep in mind, the topic throughout all this has been, I've never felt that I was worthy or good enough, and
Mm-hmm.
a top pro like Freddie Biggie Smalls, who's been to the Olympia, is telling me,
Yep.
little old me, that you're good enough. If you go to nationals, you pull off another 5 pounds, you can win. Um, so I said, wow. I mean, if this guy's saying it, like, God, I got to do something,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. So I really thought about it after that, towards the end of the prep. But we've been going for 28 weeks at that point. Mentally, I had I was at my breaking point,
I
and
imagine.
financially, I would have to do North Americans. So for people that don't know, the North Americans is a 1 week show. So you're gonna have to fly into Pittsburgh um, on check-in day, right? And you're gonna
Yep.
have to wait the whole week for bodybuilding to happen. So you have to account for hotel expenditures, your meals during the time you're there. And I just didn't feel that the expense was worth it, right? Because that was
Yeah.
the closest national show that I would have done during that period of time. Well, I would have had to wait till the USA's, or probably the Olympia amateurs, which was
Mm-hmm.
another 2 to 3 months, which I couldn't do. So that would
That
be
point, you'd be like 40 weeks. You'd be at like 40 weeks on a diet.
exactly. So I said, you know what? Let's cut it here. Let's cut it here. We're already qualified, and we'll next year we know that this is the base plan and this is what we're gonna do. So that's
Okay.
how that prep ended, and here we are, about 13 weeks out from the nationals in Florida. So that's how that happened.
So you haven't competed since the Delaware last year, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, yeah, I have not competed.
Okay.
So we decided, last year we had done um, a lot of recomping just to get me back to where I used to be. So
Yep.
this year, we decided, okay, let's try and get you a good off season,
Okay.
because um, I'm not actually a very big eater. So
Okay.
yeah, I actually don't eat a lot, like when it comes to carbs specifically, because let me throw it back to the college days. I didn't know any better nutrition wise. So I would, eat enormous amounts of protein, but my carbs would always be really small, right? Because I always
Okay.
felt that's what I needed. So metabolically speaking, I've never been a big carb eater. So when it came time to really diet down, I had to suffer. I really had to suffer, because, I was doing, 50 grams of carbs a day, for weeks on end, just to
Yep.
get it down. So we said, let's try and work on your food a little bit this year and see if you
Okay.
can eat a little bit more. So that's what we did this off season. I finished it at 253. So, the 250 I started from last year off season is a completely different 253 from this year, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, it, I started from 253 this year. We gained a ton of size, because I know the biggest knock for me last year was I needed to work on my hamstrings and my back.
Okay.
Those are my two weakest points. From the front, I was perfectly fine, but from the back and the hamstrings was what needed work.
So you
They
need
were,
you need width, you need thickness on the back. What are we working towards, or a little bit of both?
so I have the width. It's the thickness
Okay.
of the back. So that's what I really worked on this year, and I think it's been successful. I mean, you saw me, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
The back's really come up, especially my hamstrings. I would say that my hamstrings seem to be an even stronger point on my physique now, which is crazy to say. So it was a really successful off season, and then now that we've started prep, we're actually eating a lot more than we did last year.
Okay.
It's still not the amount of food that I would like to eat.
Yep.
Some people are eating like 230 grams of carbs getting shredded, and I wish it was that, but I'm not eating 230 grams of rice per meal. I'm still eating a little lower, but it's a lot better than last year. And
Yep.
we're 9 pounds down, and we're working at it, getting stronger, and getting leaner by the day.
When I saw you weeks ago, brother, when you said 250, and this isn't because you're my guest, not trying to be nice, but you wear it very well. I mean, I didn't see what your stomach looked like, but you were very tight. Like I didn't see any bloat, I didn't see anything overhanging. You were tight for 250
Right,
at your
right.
size. I mean that respectively.
Yeah, thank you. No, yeah, it's we my coach always says is he said, listen, if we start to lose the abs, we're getting too fat.
Yeah,
So we pull back. So, I finished at 253. I still had abs. I've had abs all year round. And
yeah,
I posted like a progress photo yesterday to my stories at 244, and people were messaging me. They're like, dude, at 244, you have like a completely diced midsection. I'm like, yeah, because
yep,
it's one of the I would say it's one of the stronger points of my physique. It just having that abdominal section, I've always trained it like very, very hard, like for a couple of years. Actually, I
okay,
scaled back because I started to feel that my core, the obliques, I was training the obliques a little bit too much too, which was thickening my waist. So I actually
got it,
scaled back on my ab training. So that's actually what's really helped, to keep
okay,
the abs like very tight throughout the year. And when I was younger, like I said, I was really trying to get bigger. I was trying to do everything I can. I was so crazy that I would sit down as we are now, and I would keep my abs flexed the
okay.
entire time. I would always do that 24/7.
Wow,
And
okay.
because I wanted to, I didn't think I could look like Dexter, but I wanted to try as much as I could, right?
Yep.
So I would do that. And to be quite honest, I got used to that. So a lot of times, even sitting now, like my abs, I keep them like engaged 24/7 pretty much. So I
Yeah.
think that's also helped a lot. That's also helped a lot.
The big thing too, and we'll go into this, is people seem to forget, like when you're on stage though, doing those quarter turns is to make sure that that waist is still in check, because that's what's killing the pros is when they turn, they let go for a minute, and that's when they get those pregnant bellies and they get killed.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, people
Yep.
the transitions is what catches a lot of people unaware, a lot of people unaware. And when you have a guy who has a very clean midsection, right, that tends to always put them in a higher caliber than the rest of their tiers. So
Yep.
if you look at 2 years ago, right, the rise of Nick Walker, his physique, it's not exactly a Flex Wheeler type of physique, right? But when he
Hmm.
stands there, he does his front relax or he pulls a front double. His abs just scream at you, right? Like
Yeah.
he's just as big as everyone else, but what separates him from the rest of them is there's just so much detail when you're looking at him from the front. This year, the same thing with Andrew Jacked, right? Andrew Jacked on the
Yeah.
Texas Pro stage, he stands there, he does a front double. The abs are so etched in, so diced that you have no choice but to look at him compared to everyone else. He wasn't the most conditioned guy on stage, but just because that abdominal section, it does a lot for a physique when it comes to separating you from the rest of the pack.
Oh
I think
yeah.
it really does. It really does.
I mean, and even now, when you look at Nick Walker at, I don't know, 295 or whatever he is now, he's still shredded in the abdominal area. Like he's keeping that in check.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder when he really leans down. I mean, I don't know what he's going to gun for, 260s. I don't know what he's going to come in at. But if his abs are that tight now, how are they going to look when he's really below 10%?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much bigger they can get because those things were like they were like those Mario blocks. When you played Mario when you were you
Yep,
were a
yep.
kid. That's what they looked like. Just stuck on a body. So I don't know how much bigger he could get them. But yeah, he's got a very well developed midsection, and it really separates him from the rest of the pack. At that
Yep.
level. So
And you talk a lot about Dex. Dex is the guy that I had the most admiration for growing up because I mean I like the mass monsters, but I like more the physiques. And I don't know if you're aware, Dexter got his pro card as a lightweight. Not a lot of people realize
yeah,
that, which
yeah,
is crazy.
yeah. He did, and he kept putting on size from there. There's and maybe Sean, maybe you can tell me a little bit more because I know during the 90s, early 2000s, people weren't always so what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't always so honest with their actual weight on stage, right? People would blow it up. So there's always been speculation, right? That Dexter was really in the 230s back
Yep.
then, 230s to like low 240s. But we would hear that, oh, he's 250 on stage. I mean, what do you think? Do you think he was like a 250-pound bodybuilder or like a high 230s?
No, I would. It's funny because I think Dex was always in that competing at 230, 235.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
one thing he always talked about was he never went off season by more than like 15, 20 pounds most.
right, right.
And that's why his physique, like some people look at him like from the beginning to the end, and he never like he might have put on through his career, his 20 years or whatever it was, because he had one of the longest careers. He might have only changed like maybe 12, 15 pounds, but he refined it. But if you look at all these other guys, they started X, like I don't know, when you look at maybe the Kevin Lavronis that maybe
Yeah,
won their pro card at 220, maybe two teens, and he ended at 250, 255, the Ronnie Coleman's. Dexter wanted to play the symmetry game. He didn't want to play the
yeah,
mass game. And I think that's what gave him longevity, just his health, his joints, everything else.
yeah. No, I completely agree. And there's something to be said, when you do bodybuilding your own way versus
Yep.
chasing the king, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Um, there's some bodybuilders, Cedric, may you rest in peace. He did bodybuilding his own way from the very beginning till the end. People wanted him. People always said, "Oh, if you put on, Cedric puts on 20 pounds of muscle or 10 pounds, he's Mr. Olympia." But he's like, that's not a physique that I want to look like. And
Yep.
Dexter was pretty much the same thing. Dexter went through the Ronnie Coleman era. Everyone was chasing Ronnie Coleman.
Yep.
During that time. I mean, Jay said it himself that he had to get that big because he was chasing Ronnie Coleman. He didn't want to be that big, but he just had to. And I feel like a lot of those physiques they looked better, 10 pounds lighter. Like one of my actual favorite 90s bodybuilders was Kevin Levrone, right?
Of course.
And before Kevin actually put on that extra size, I thought that was the perfect balance for him.
Yeah.
When he got the butt, when he took the hair off, and he was really pushing the size. Um, yeah, I think unfortunately the champion defines the landscape, and
Yep.
that's the reason why a lot of these guys, pushed the way they did. But Dexter, he stuck to his guns because I don't think it. I think he understood where he started from and where he got there. There was no point pushing further.
Yep.
Like you said, he started from a lightweight. You've already gone the extra mile. There's no point pushing that much, and it really helped his physique, till the very end. You
I don't
know,
think anybody won their card. I don't think anybody has won their card at such a lower weight and made so much advancements because most of the lightweights, they turn pro, they might go middle, maybe light heavy. But when you
yeah,
think about him jumping 3, 4 classes, maybe like in the overall
yeah,
grand scale,
yeah. I don't think there's anyone I know that has done that. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know because the only person I can think of, but he hasn't really jumped that far, is Sean Clarita.
yeah,
Sean Clarita going to the 212 because I think he got his card at bantam. I think he got his card as a
okay,
bantam, from what I understand. So he's jumped up significantly, but not to that level.
yeah.
Not to that level of Dexter. Yeah.
So you mentioned that's actually a question someone asked. You mentioned Flavroni. So is he your ideal physique, or if you could seriously mold your physique to somebody else? I know it's all about us, but who would you want to have physique on your body?
Yeah. I'm a realist, Sean. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
It would be nice to be like a Lavroni type physique, but I don't think my physique heads in that direction at all.
Yep.
So I think my ideal physique for me, just looking at the landscape, and I would say like it would be a William Bonac type.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, William is, we're kind of the same height. He's maxed out on his entire frame.
Yep.
Um, he's wide, but everything is compact in a sense, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how my physique type kind of is. Everything is just pushed out and bubbly, but it's compact.
Yep.
So I think like if my physique is heading in a direction, I would like it to be more of a William type physique, where it's like you look at this physique and you say, there's nothing you can say. Well, for William, what's the knock on William? Oh, the guy is short. Oh, the guy, you know, he's a little bit, he's short. What else are you gonna say?
Yeah,
Where are you
exactly.
gonna put muscle on his body? There's nowhere left.
Yep.
He's maxed it out. So I think for me, that's where my physique would typically tend to go. Maybe a little bit more streamlined
Okay.
around there, but towards that side. That's where I would say my physique would go. Now, if I wanted a physique that I would like, sure, I would like to be like a Flex Wheeler, but
Oh yeah.
I know I can't be a Flex Wheeler, So I'm just being realistic with what I think my physique is headed.
No, and I appreciate that. So I know you talked about it a little bit. What is your training schedule like? Do you still train like a power lifter at all, or are you kind of more bodybuilding mode, or when you're off season, let's say?
So training wise, and I have a question I'm going to ask you after this.
Sure.
Training wise, I train I train it's a bodybuilder style,
Okay.
but it's it's heavy. It's a lot of compound movements. I'm not really a very big on machine work. I know a lot of people have shifted towards machines, but it's very heavy on compound movements. That's why I love Apollon. They
Yeah.
got all the barbells, they got what you need. Um, so for example, I do pretty much like a chest and shoulders. So I would merge chest and shoulders, and then I do legs, its own separate day. The back has its own separate day for itself, and then shoulders, and then light chest. So
Okay.
I do light chest with that, and then I do arms, and then I have a separate day again because my back is something I'm working on for my weaker points, which is the back and hamstrings, and
Yep.
it rotates that way. But the bulk of the main workouts center around 2 to 3 compound movements, right? So if we're
Okay.
doing, say, for example, chest would be, a barbell incline, a flat bench, and
Mm-hmm.
then, we would do some isolatory work after that. But
Okay.
the main bulk, and then we would do like a dumbbell shoulder press. But the main movements I'm focusing on are the compound movements, and I'm trying to um, have progressive overload specifically in those movements. I'm not really concerned with um, gaining weight on a cable fly. I'm
Yep.
not really concerned with that. I'm more concerned about the weights and how much heavier I'm going on my compound movement. So it's bodybuilding. It's more like I would say it's more of a heavy volume training style
Okay.
compared to nowadays. I know people are doing a lot more lower frequency,
Mm-hmm.
lower frequency, and then they focus on maybe 3 movements and they try and push those 3 movements as far as they can take it. That's kind of the lay of the land now, but that's never worked for me. What works for me is heavy poundage and just you know working on that muscle till it can't fire anymore, till failure.
Yep. Yep.
So I have a question with you on that because
Sure.
I posted this on my Instagram recently, and I got slaughtered. I got a ton of responses on this. And
Okay.
I said, nowadays, I've been seeing in the gym, especially, we're in the era of Nick Walker, and we know that Nick Walker is a very slow, controlled type, um, you know, trainer, right? So he does very slow on the reps. He pushes through. And I said, listen, that's great. And I think it works very well, but it works very well for refinement once you've gone to a certain weight. So I said, I don't think it's beneficial for someone starting out in bodybuilding or powerlifting to be on a bench and doing slow reps. That's
Yep.
a different intensifier. I think that person should work more on gaining strength in those movements with good form. But
Mm-hmm.
good form doesn't mean you have to slow it down till it's, you're having 5 seconds per, per flow of movement. I think
Yeah.
you should just focus on the movement and gaining strength in those compound movements. And then when you're up to a certain level, within your skill set and your training, you can add those intensifiers. And Sean, I got slaughtered for saying this.
Okay.
So, what are your thoughts? I want to know because I was like, I couldn't believe it myself. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's people it's the old school that I should say old school, but there's people that it's more of the time under tension, like the slow and methodical. Where
Right,
I know, I mean, we could be here forever because there's so many. Really, what works for you, the person, let's face it, because obviously what works for Nick Walker probably is not going to work for you, and vice versa.
right.
Some people I know they worry more about the negative and explode to the positive. You're doing bench, like they explode up, but then work on the negative. It's so hard to tell because I'm not avoiding your question, but everyone's so different. Everybody likes to put people in a box that,
Right.
oh, this nutrition program will work for you. No, it worked for me, but not for you.
Exactly.
Lifting, a question that I had, and we can kind of segue into this, as lifters, are we overcomplicating things with angles and movements? Bend at a 68 degree and do laterals because it'll hit more of the rear delt. And I'm more the old school, the compound movements, like you said, and maybe some cable stuff. But I'm kind of getting long-winded here. But again,
Yeah.
you're not wrong in what you were saying earlier. You're not wrong.
Yeah. And that's to segue into that question. Yes, I 100% agree. I think things are being overcomplicated with movements and angles. Listen, like you said, the 90s, early 2000s till now, not much has really changed when it comes to training, right?
Yes.
People like Branch Warren, Johnny Jackson, Ronnie Coleman, the Metroflex guys, those guys never really used machines.
No.
They just took the weights. Of course, the form wasn't always perfect, but look at what they were able to do, right?
Yep.
With their training style. And nowadays we're seeing people using bands and intensifiers and all this. And listen, like you said, it works. But I don't think that when people are designing their programs, especially when you're starting out, so amateur to intermediate level, I don't think you need those things. So you get to a certain point where you're lifting where the risk versus reward is just not worth it, right?
Yes.
So if you're someone that's already, you're squatting 5 plates every day in the gym, well, there's really no point pushing past 5 plates, right? The risk of progressing in that weight versus getting injured, what you're going to gain muscle per square inch is just not worth it, right?
Yeah.
So you can start adding different things and different modalities and intensifiers to actually make that weight or use lesser weight work to prevent risk for injury. And that's what I think a lot of pros, at that level do. But people think that because they're doing it, they should be doing it as well. But they haven't maximized their
Yes.
potential of where they are within their lifting career for them to be incorporating those things. And that was my main argument with that.
Yeah. As I say, people that are training, especially in your first couple of years, worry about putting on the size, work on those compound movements. Don't worry about the angles and this and that. Build that foundation. And then, if you're trying to refine, then start going more of the cables and some machines and stuff. But otherwise, stick to the compound. Stick to what, Arnold and Columbo used to do in the 70s. Hasn't changed.
Exactly. It hasn't changed. Listen, I tell people this: if you squat, bench, and deadlift every single day, not every day, but like as your program on a weekly basis,
Yep.
you will grow. Okay. You're progressing in those movements. That's all you do. You're eating right. You're getting your sleep. You will grow.
Yep.
There's no need to overcomplicate things. Focus on the simple movements first, and then once you start to reach a level of you know no return or risk versus reward, then you can start incorporating those other things into it. So I'm with
Yep.
you. I think it's overcomplicated.
And that's how you know you mature as an athlete, where when we all start, it's all about how much do you bench, how much do you squat, how much, how much, how much. And then
Right.
you fast forward as you mature, it's more of, I don't care if you're only bench pressing 225, but if it's
Exactly.
looking clean and you look good doing it, it's all that matters.
Exactly. Exactly. How are you recruiting those muscles during
Yes.
doing the weight? Like they were saying something. I watched something the other day, and Neil Hill was talking about when he coached Big Ramy, and he said that Big Ramy was able to fatigue his quads with just one plate on a hack squat. And
Yeah.
that should, I mean, look at the guy's quads. I mean, clearly you can tell that man is connected. He's connected with those things
Oh, yeah.
on a very high level. So the recruiting the weight, recruiting the muscle fibers, that mind to muscle connection, I think is also very important when you're doing this stuff.
Yep. Like I have a very good friend because he's a national competitor getting ready to defend his crown in Panama, Florida in a couple of weeks. And I
Okay.
laugh, and he might even be listening. He's gonna know who I'm talking about. He loves to do what I hate to say what the girls do, where you put the plate and you're doing the pelvic thrusts. Okay.
Okay. Like
And
a hip thrust. Yeah.
he does like three plates, like 345s on each side. And I said, dude, are you trying to get a bubble butt? What's the purpose? What are you doing? Okay, everyone wants striated glutes, but I'm like, you don't need to put three plates on each side for like 2 to 3 reps. And he's gonna yell at me for
Yeah.
this later when he sees this. But anyway,
And I think the problem there, I don't think the problem is the movement, because the hip thrust is very good for hamstrings too.
of
It's very good
course,
for hamstring development. I think the problem is, doing 3 reps on the movement is worthless in a scheme of bodybuilding, especially for that particular movement, which is more of a, as you said, a bubble butt builder. Um, you're chasing hypertrophy, so it's not really beneficial to be on a low rep scale when you're doing something like that.
yep, yep. So let's bring in a couple of questions. We'll do some round robins here. Okay, who is your Mount Rushmore of bodybuilders?
That's okay.
And let me
Well,
anybody that's listening to this, Kenny has not been privy to any of these questions ahead of time. It's right here on the spot.
right. And let me preface this too by saying that, if your favorite bodybuilder is not on the list, it's not disrespect. I respect all these guys. They're pros, so it's not really, this is just my opinion.
Sure.
So don't take it as gospel. But number one on that list is Ronnie Coleman. I mean, if Ronnie Coleman is not on that list, I'm sorry, you don't know bodybuilding.
Yep.
He's the king. There's a reason why he's called the king of bodybuilding. I think Ronnie is definitely number one. Number two on that list would go to Dorian Yates, in my opinion.
Okay.
Dorian Yates changed the landscape of bodybuilding forever.
Yes.
I think his influence on bodybuilding and the impact that he made on the sport, um, you cannot not put him on that list. Number three is Arnold.
Okay.
I think Arnold's the influence that he's had on the sport as well. Not necessarily his physique. The physiques have improved since the 70s. So you can't really compare his physique to, a physique of today. But the
Mm-hmm.
impact he had on the sport, the reason why bodybuilding is where it is today is technically because of Arnold,
Yep.
pumping iron and, bringing it to the forefront. He was the one that was instrumental in that. So I put Arnold there as number three. Number four, in my opinion, would be Flex Wheeler. I
Okay.
think Flex Wheeler is an uncrowned is probably the most uncrowned Mr. Olympia. I think when you talk about the perfect physique, right? The perfect physique for bodybuilding,
Yep.
and if you tell an artist to draw it, you're basically drawing Flex Wheeler.
Okay.
I think that's the reason why Flex Wheeler will be on that list for Sultan of Symmetry. And then the last person would probably be hmm.
All right. We can go back to it if it comes to mind.
um I'd say it's gonna be between, to be honest. I mean, that last person on that, because I'm not just looking at the physique, I'm looking at their impact, their contribution
Sure.
to bodybuilding, right? I think that's the most important thing. So the last person for me would probably be between it would probably be between Phil Heath and Lee Haney or Jay
Okay.
Cutler or Jay Cutler.
Okay.
One of those three, because Jay is not really because of his amount of wins, it's because of what he's done for the sport and what he's still doing for the sport today.
Yes.
I think Jay is the most he's the one Mr. Olympia that continues to give back to the sport even after his reign. So I think there's something to be said for that. And then Lee Haney and Phil Heath would be because of your record.
Yep.
I think getting the title 8 and 7 times is a lot. That's 7 and 8 years in the making.
Yep.
That you took that title. So there's something to be said. So it's a toss up between those three. So I'll let someone pick for that.
I was wondering if you're going to show your age or not, and whether you're going to say Lee Haney or not, because Lee Haney for me is on. But again, I'm a little bit older than you.
Right.
But if you think about it, if you know how much about Lee Haney, he won his 8th by the age of 32 and hung up his shorts and walked away. And some people say because he had Dorian nipping in his heels, or he was just like, you know what, I don't need any more to prove. I'm stepping away with in high fashion.
Yeah. I think, yeah, like you said, I think Lee Haney is one of those guys. He doesn't get talked about a lot when we talk about, bodybuilding, because to be quite honest with you, Lee Haney is squeaky clean. And when I mean squeaky clean, I mean class act. There was never really much controversy, with his wins. They were always clear cut compared to a lot of Mr. Olympias. So there was no debate there. Number two, like you said, he kind of hung it up at the prime of his career. A lot of Mr. Olympia champions, they're usually beat out, and it's because of like injuries. Injuries start to set the physique back, or someone takes over and then they try to get it back, and then they end up. But Lee quit. He stopped at the peak of his, as a bodybuilder, 32. From 30, 31 till about 34, 35 is the peak of your physique when it starts to mature.
Yep.
So we never even saw Lee Haney at the peak of what his physique could have looked like, and he hung it up there. And with that too, he's still within the sport now. He may not be on the forefront like a Jay Cutler, but he's still actively within the sport till today. So I think that's why Lee Haney people don't mention him a lot, because typically he's pretty squeaky clean when it comes to his media presence.
I think he hit it right on the head, because every bodybuilder or somebody talks a little bit of shit about somebody else, but it's true. I've never heard a negative thing at all. Even like Rich Gaspari and everybody else that were on the stage with him never said anything negative.
Nothing. I mean, the guy, he was a class act from the beginning till the end, and keep in mind, let's bodybuilding takes away from family life for a lot of pros at that level. A lot of pros don't end up getting married, or if they're married, they don't really have kids, because the sacrifice to get there is a lot. And Lee Haney, he has a family. He's been married to the same woman, since the beginning of his career. He's got wonderful kids. So that's someone that's just winning in all angles. Like, he did what he wanted to do in the sport. He did it, and here he is, happy, healthy, and with a beautiful family, and he's continues to be successful. So I think that's the reason why too. He's just too clean. He's just too squeaky clean. You can't say anything.
I know you mentioned Flex, but I don't know if you want to stand by best bodybuilder to never win the O. If you're doubling down on Flex, or if there's anybody else.
Are we talking about on crown Mr. Olympias, or the top of or the top person that never won the Mr. Olympia that should have won?
In your mind, you could say somebody or somebody's that maybe should have won that didn't.
Okay, so I think Flex Wheeler should have won a Mr. Olympia, not on the day, but if he ever maxed his physique and brought his best physique to the stage, at the Mr. Olympia, he would have won a title. So Flex is in a separate category. So I think Flex is one of the best bodybuilders that never won a Mr. Olympia, because he never showed up to that on the day of the show. Now, if we're talking about on the day of the show that should have won that didn't win, that is a completely different story. I think, in my opinion, 2007 Victor Martinez I think
Okay.
that is the one. 2007 Victor Martinez and 93 Nasser El Simbadi. Those
Mm,
two, I think on the day,
yep.
those were the two people that I think got shafted the most. They should have won, hands down. And I think, Victor Martinez, I think if he won in 2007, it would have changed the trajectory of his career.
Yeah.
I really think it would have. So those are the two people I think, best and never won on the day. But overall,
Yeah.
Flex Wheeler. Yeah.
It's interesting you say Victor because I listen to Jay Cutler's podcast a lot, and that comes up a lot. He says no, he thinks he should have deservedly won, but a lot of people will say to him, Victor should have won in 2007.
Yeah, nah. I mean, what's Jay supposed to say? Oh, I won it by luck, I
No,
mean,
but he's been pretty honest though, like saying, "Listen, I didn't look that good. I should." He's actually admitted that he shouldn't have won. There was one year he said that he should not have won because of torn bicep and everything else. I think it was 2009, maybe. I don't
2009,
remember.
2009, yeah,
He
the
had a
last
torn
one, yeah,
bicep and something else. He had an infection, and he's like, "I shouldn't have won, and I did."
yeah. 2007, I've looked at those tapes. I've looked at it 3 or 4 times, and every time I see it, I mean, Victor's physique. When you talk about, I think in bodybuilding, people peak once. You peak at a show once where you never look that good ever again. Like that
Yep.
is the ultimate physique that you can bring. And Victor brought it in 2007. And when
Yeah.
I look at that, I've looked at the tapes. To me, there is no way. Maybe because I wasn't sitting there. Maybe if I was in
Yeah. Yeah.
Vegas, I would
Yeah.
have a different story. But what I see on tape, I mean, I find it very hard to agree with Jay Cutler on that one. I think Victor should have won 2007.
But Kenny, let's when talking friend to friend here. That was after Victor was in jail for a little while, correct? If I remember correctly.
I think no. I think
No.
no. I think
Okay.
he went after that. I think he
Okay.
went after
Okay.
that because I think he tried to do. I think it was 2009. Maybe he did the Arnold or something. He was coming back, and that's when he
Okay.
got he got jailed. Yeah, so that was after. Like I
Okay.
said, after that point, I think his career started to go down a little bit, and
Yep.
it does something to a person mentally. Like, listen, we give so much to this sport, and when you give everything and you bring your best and you're not rewarded for it, it
Yeah.
could do something to you psychologically where you don't even realize that you're kind of self-sabotaging your own career. And
Yep.
Victor has openly admittedly said it himself that he's had a lot of ups and downs in his career, which are completely outside of bodybuilding, by the way. It's not
Sure.
even bodybuilding related, and they affected his career. So I think, like, for me, 2007, if that happened, it would have changed his life. I really think it would have, and
Okay.
yeah, that's my opinion.
All right. Derek Lunsford, open or 212? I don't think he's announced it yet.
Okay, so
Lay it all out, brother.
Sean, when in the history of this sport have you ever heard the Mr. Olympia promoters bring out a video about one competitor and say, "Oh, it may be unhealthy for him to, do this, so we may
Yeah.
have to give him an invitation if he can't make the weight." Listen, if they're bringing out a press statement, a press release about you, they're basically preparing the landscape so that when he comes into that show and they announce it, they'll tell you this is the reason why we put it here.
Yeah.
We told you guys, a couple of months ago. And I think Derek posted on his Instagram post recently, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, something about growth, that you have to keep growing. So I think he's doing the open. I think he's doing the open this year. I
But
mean,
will he get an invite, or will he do a last minute show that'll give him a qualification?
that he's going to get an invite. I mean, Dan Solomon himself created that video. It wasn't a statement from Haney Rambod. It wasn't a
Yeah,
statement from
yeah,
Derek. Dan Solomon. For people watching, Dan Solomon is pretty much the Mr. Olympia. He's kind of like the Mr. Olympia, like press
yep,
guy. So he was the one that came out and brought this open interview and dialogue out that there is a potential that Derek may be doing the Open. And if it's coming from the Mr. Olympia brand itself, I think they're handing him an invite, straight. But that leads me to a question for you. I mean, if you're a Mr. Olympia 212, should you get an automatic qualification to the Mr. Olympia Open?
So funny. I was watching a podcast about that, but I guess years ago there was an exemption given to. I think there was an exemption given to Flex, but again, at that point he was already 5 or 6 deep into the Mr. Olympia. I think it would just. I say yes because I think it would even build more hype around the show. Hottie made the jump, and look where Hottie is. Hottie's top 3, and some people say, some people are saying that he could be Mr. Olympia. I don't know if he could, but he's living proof. I know one of the Raymonds years ago did some open shows. Jose Raymond maybe did some open shows.
Jose Raymond.
Yeah, maybe not Olympia, but I know he did some open shows, and I don't think he placed that bad. But I would say, yeah, get the guy in there, and if he comes at 100%, does he crack top 5 or maybe even top 3 in your opinion?
Derek Lunsford, 100%.
Yeah.
This Olympia is stacked. So top 6.
Seriously, dude. Top 6. Okay.
He's fighting with Bonac. He's fighting with you
got Hunter, you got Nick.
Hunter, Nick, Bonac. He's fighting with those guys.
Yep.
Keep in mind, this Mr. Olympia, I think the lineup itself has to be one of the deepest lineups we've had in the last 6-7 years.
30 people have qualified. That's the latest I've heard. 30 people.
And this is not a qualification on points. Keep in mind, a lot of times from 8 down, it's qualification on points. These guys have all won shows. These guys are really good, and they're very different. They're all very different. So outside of the top 5, I couldn't really tell you, like, from 6 down what's going to happen, because you throw an Andrew Jack in there, you throw a Samson Dowda in there.
Blessing is another one that's kind of up and down.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of these pros now that they look so different compared to the lineup that I really don't know where they're going to place. And then I heard Justin Rodriguez may actually be doing the Olympia because he's top 2 in points. So his body's fresh. He hasn't competed throughout the last year, so who knows? I mean, there's a lot of guys this year. There's a lot of guys.
Yeah, which is good though. Which is good for a point, because I kind of feel a little bit that men's Open was kind of dying down a little bit. And it's good to see a little bit of life back into it.
Yeah. I think Open is back. Anyone that says that bodybuilding, I mean, there was a point in time where you kind of knew what was going on. Like, I think halfway through Phil's era, you're just like, oh, it's going to be another one, like I already know where top 1 to 7 is going to place. Nothing, you know. But now the landscape is so volatile that you just want to see like from 3 down, literally from 3 down, Sean.
Yeah.
It's a toss up about who actually comes your best, because this is a trigger statement. No one should take me on this, but it's a polarizing topic. If Hunter shows up the way he showed up last year, Hunter may go down to 6 and below, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think his showing last year was justifiable for the placing that he got. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because he beat Nick Walker, and when you look at, I watched the live stream, I looked at the photos. I mean, unless it's in person is anything different, but it didn't really seem to me that it was he should have placed 4th clearly. It didn't seem that way to me,
I think that's what people are good. I can only assume. I think that's one of the lineups people want to see is Nick against Ramy, just in a comparison.
What do you think? Honestly, what do you think?
I don't know. I've been very vocal about this. Okay, so I like Ramy. Okay, I like his physique because, again, as big as he is, his midsection is in check. So I give him a lot of credit for that. Okay, I mean, hell, one of his legs is the size of my body. But as Mr. Olympia, I don't think he's been a very good ambassador to the sport
Yes.
because obviously he didn't go to the Arnold. He missed the Pittsburgh Pro or whatever it was, and
Yeah.
supposedly,
Guess
I
what?
mean, this is what people say. I have no validity. He was a no call, no show, nothing. Not a good
Yeah.
look for Mr. Olympia when you've got Weinberger, who's at the top of the game here when you look at the IFBB.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to hurt him because half me says he can show up at 100%, but kind of get dinged because of politics.
So here's what I think, and you're 100%, Sean. You're 100% right. And Jay Cutler has mentioned this before. With it's basically an athlete mentality, right? You struggle so hard to win, and then the fear of losing, especially when it's so in your face and clear as day,
Yep.
becomes the driving force that pushes you. So with everything you just said now, that is, I think, the driving factor for Ramy. Because if you notice, Ramy has been completely, and I agree with you, he has not been a great Mr. Olympia in terms of representation, at least in the West. I don't know what's happening in the Middle East,
Yep.
but he was pretty much MIA from social media for the last 7 months. And then
Yes.
after the Jim Mannion guest posing that he missed with the no call, no show, if you notice, he has started posting a lot on his social media. He's
Yep.
training. He's showing his training videos. So it's almost like he is aware. The point I'm trying to make is he is aware
Yep.
of what he did and the potential of what that means if he doesn't come in 100% where it is not clear as day that he's the winner. If it's not clear as day he's the winner, in my opinion, he's going to lose.
Yep.
But if it's so drastic that he's clearly the winner, I think they'll still give it to him because I personally still think that Ramy is in a separate league of his own.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't think Nick Walker is still on the same level as Ramy because keep in mind, Ramy is relatively tall in the lineup.
Yep.
He's big. He's also really big, and he has a very nice midsection,
Yes.
right? We talk about stars that break onto the scene all the time. Everyone's talking about Andrew Jack this year. Everyone's talking about Nick Walker last year. People are forgetting 2013 when Ramy got on the scene in the New York Pro.
Mm-hmm.
No one had ever seen a physique like that. We're so used to it now because we've seen him for so many years. But I remember when he first got on the scene. I don't know if you remember that show. It was like a green backdrop. They had like a
Yep.
green backdrop there. That was his pro debut in the US. And people were like, what the hell is this? Like, how is this possible? How can someone have legs like that? So Ramy's physique is in a tier of its own. No
Yep.
one is like him within the lineup. And if he comes in shape and he comes in diced, I don't think you can take that crown from him because he was 336 pounds. And he was fairly lean in the
Yeah.
photo that he showed. So if as long as the prep goes well, he has a potential to win. But if there are any hiccups, well, they've already made some statements about Derek. There's Nick Walker.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean,
I've also heard rumors, though, that some people are saying that this is his last show, that he had a thing to himself that he's going to retire at 37, 38, and
yeah,
family man method or family man version, I guess.
yeah, he made that statement. He did make
Oh,
that
he
statement
did.
that,
Okay.
yeah, he did that this was his last year. Um, I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay.
I think sometimes I think, you know, I'm not at that level where they're at, where just the pressure alone of that show, of trying to not lose that title, it does a lot to the mind. And I think Ramy, just from what I've seen in the past, when he was with Chris Aceto, he switched a lot of coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And just from what prior coaches have said about him, Ramy's a very nice guy. He's got a very gentle heart. I think mentally is where it hurts Ramy the most. I
Mm-hmm.
think mentally the prep is where he suffers the most. And I think that is what continues to erode or eat at him, should I say, each
Yeah.
year. So there's a potential maybe his last year, but hey, once he gets that $400,000 check, he may say, you know what, maybe I should try this again one more time.
So, Kenny, let's end this topic a little bit, and we can laugh or poke fun at each other in 3 months here. Give me your top 3 or 4 for the show.
Okay, so I still think Ramy.
Okay.
Ramy's first. Brandon is second. I don't think that top 3 is shifting. Brandon is second.
Okay.
Third is Hottie. Now fourth, I'm making a statement call here. Fourth is Nick Walker.
Okay.
I think Nick Walker is sliding into fourth. I'll even give you a fifth.
Uh-oh.
I think fifth is a toss-up between Hunter. Yeah, I think fifth is Hunter. I was gonna say Bonac, but I don't know. I haven't seen them close side by side from each other. But yeah. I know Bonac has put on size again. I know he's a lot like his older self, compared to last year. So I don't know. Bonac is dangerous. No one's talking about it. But I think Hunter, Bonac, that number 5 spot is going to be one of them.
Interesting. You know what? And I actually was going to say the same thing. I was going to say Ramy and Brandon, surprisingly enough, but I think Nick's going to surprise people. I don't think, I mean, if it looks like this now, it's only going to get better. I don't know, unless something happens where he spills or something, but I think Nick is going to be kind of the surprise a little bit. And I think when you look at the overall show, I think Samson is going to be the surprise. I don't know if I can place him, but I think he's going to come in and surprise everybody, maybe coming in at a 6, 7, 8 spot.
Yeah, I think Samson is going to be 6 or 7. That's where I see him. I think Samson is a 6 or 7. Then there's a toss-up because I look at it. Ian was 7th last year. I don't know if Ian can beat Andrew Jacked.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you. So it's a toss-up between 7 and 8 for Ian and Andrew Jacked. One of them toss up between the other. And so I don't know. I don't know what happens. That from 5 down, this is what we said. Like from 5 down, it's a dogfight. It's really a dogfight because they're all so close and they're all so different that like I said before, the king or the Mr. Olympia defines the landscape. Mm-hmm. So a streamlined physique is in town. That's what is happening right now. A bigger man with a streamlined physique. So you can see that, a guy like Andrew Jacked, a guy like Samson. Samson's a 6-footer. He's a 6 foot guy, very tall guy. Those guys, Ian is not streamlined, which hurts him. Ian has everything, but it's just not put together in a way that is, more of a typical bodybuilding, physique. So I think that's what hurts Ian. But the conditioning, I mean, not many people touch Ian when it comes to conditioning, within the show. So that's 6 to 8 is going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. I can't say. I can't even say who's going to win between those. Yeah. But the top 3, do you really think Ramy? Do you really think? Well, I'll let you put it to rest after this. Do you really think Nick can beat Hottie this year?
It's tough because, and this was actually on, I was watching Dennis James podcast, and Milos and him were talking about this. No matter what happens, the big guy, if they're both in condition, the big guy will always beat the little guy. And let's face it, Hottie last year, he got dinged for his shoulders.
Yeah.
Whatever it was substance, whether it was something that made his, let's face, shoulders looked off a little bit. Hopefully he can overcome that and doesn't make the same mistake.
Yeah. Because when I look at track record, which is so funny you said that, they are both conditioning wise. Nick and Hottie are some of the most consistent on the Mr. Olympia stage right now.
Yes.
The thing though between the two of them that differs is if Nick is not 100%, his physique could look a little bit blocky, which would hurt him.
I can see that. Yep.
So if Nick is 100%, it just comes down to the muscle definition and then, the muscularity, how they're put together. and pretty much muscle maturity, which is why I think Hadi still beats Nick, because Hadi is so detailed and he
Yep.
has the muscle. Nick is still young. Hadi has that muscle maturity
Mm-hmm.
that you can just see. It's very hard, gnarly muscle. That's what puts him in the head. But like you said, if he comes back with those same Jimmy shoulders, I mean, there's they may knock him in the same way that Ramy, if he doesn't come in 100%, they may knock him too. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a toss up between the two of them.
And then last statement. I know I keep trying to end close the statement here, but with Nick, and even though it's genetic, he's got those veins in his ankles and his calves, and I know there's nothing he can do about it. But I don't know if he will get dinged for that for not looking right, because you know how it's so political and
Yeah,
so it depends who's judging.
yeah, it's got to be clean cut. They want like they want someone that represents the Mr. Olympia brand in a type of way. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I mean, it's genetic. There's nothing he can really do about it. I mean,
Exactly.
even Arnold made a funny comment about it during the Arnolds when Nick competed during the Arnolds. So
Yeah.
you can definitely say that whoever is judging, on that panel, they definitely, it's somewhere in the back of their minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless of, it's a subjective sport. So regardless of if it doesn't affect things on paper, at the back of their minds, it's definitely affecting some kind of placing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you are right. But all you can do sometimes with bodybuilding is you can only just bring your best,
That's it.
and if it's above your, he's pushing his genetics to the limit, he's bringing his conditioning, he's pushing the conditioning to the limit. And that's why for me, I don't know if a Nick Walker can place in a top two, him
Yeah.
versus Ramy, because I feel like Nick is at that level where he's pushed everything to 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the improvements from here are very minimal. And he's getting a placing based on that 100% max. So unless
Yeah.
Ramy decides to call it quits, then Nick is compared to Brandon. Brandon is a lot smaller guy compared to Ramy. Then he has more of a foothold to say I can place in that top three or top two. But
Yep.
because Ramy's such a bigger physique, you're only judging what's placed in front of you, right? So if Ramy is so big, everyone else looks small. So
Yep.
Nick's size, which is a defining factor for him, is no longer it's no longer a winning trait. He's just part of the lineup. And I
Yep.
think that's why he's not in that top three bracket, because the guy in the number one is just so big.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I agree. So had somebody reach out, questioning what kind of supplements do you use?
So I use protein, whey protein,
Okay.
creatine. I think creatine is probably one of the most underrated supplements on the market.
Overstudied.
Yeah. Creatine. I use fish oils. I do I take a health supplement too. Just for keeping the internally keeping everything in place. And then sometimes I could be better. I take multivitamins, and then sometimes I take like a joint supplement.
Yep.
But I'll be honest, Sean. Sometimes I should probably be a lot better on that. And then of course a pre-workout. I do pre-workouts.
Okay.
I try not to take them too much. Because
Yep.
I work out typically later during the day, and it affects my sleep sometimes.
Sure.
So, but a pre-workout is definitely necessary in the arsenal, 100%.
Do you use creatine up to the show, or do you cease it like the week or two out, or you still could use it all the way to the day of the show?
No, I cut it out like 3 weeks before, to be quite
Okay.
honest with you, because creatine, for people listening, creatine, it pushes water into the cells, the muscle cells too. So you could be holding more water than you need to,
Yep.
and as you're getting closer to a show, you want to be as dry as possible. So anything that helps you retain water, you want to cut that out. So yeah, that's why. So I cut it out 3 weeks before.
Got it. Got it. So you get your pro card. What's the short and long term goal?
So if I get the pro card, I'm gonna roll straight into the 212s. I would like to, God willing, if I get a pro card this year, I would like to probably do the New York Pro maybe in 2024, not 23. I think
Okay.
I would like to use that year and refine myself, bring a little bit more polish, and then go into the New York Pro in 2024. And then if things go well, I may continue a pro run, just
Okay.
competing several times, maybe get to the show, win a show, maybe like a Nordic Pro or something, or even the New York Pro. Who knows? You never know a year from now,
Yep.
and make it to the Olympia. That would be the goal. But the ultimate goal for every bodybuilder when you compete is, when you turn pro, is to make it to the Super Bowl, right? You want to
Yep.
make it to the Mr. Olympia. You want to stand next to the champion, and you want to see how far you can take your physique. So that's the main goal.
Do you want to be Mr. Olympia? Do you think you have it in the tank to be Mr. Olympia?
Well, based on everything we've talked about today, I am the self-defeating type when it comes to this stuff. I think I think I wouldn't say. I think if I turn pro, I would say I have what it takes to be Mr. Olympia. But um, I think genetically speaking, just the way I'm put together, I
Mm-hmm.
think I have the tools to
Okay.
make it to the Mr. Olympia. Now, to be the Mr. Olympia, um, I have to see when I get there to that
Yeah. Yeah.
level. But I think I have the tools to at least get to that level.
We'll see if you continue the string of firsts, man. It's all of it on the line.
I know, and the scary thing is, if I don't come first, I don't know how it's going to affect me because I've never really, taken a second, or a third. So it's going to be, I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm hoping, nationals this year. And it's on a serious note, I'm coming really strong and really serious. So when I compete, and I'll say this, Sean, I'm not one of those people to say I come to be the best version of myself. I compete to win. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're competing, forget the best version of yourself. The guy who's standing next to you doesn't care about your best version. He wants to beat you.
Mm-hmm.
So you compete to win. So if
Yep.
I'm going to nationals this year, my goal is to win my class and turn pro. So I'm going there for first place and nothing less. So, we're going to keep pushing at it and then see how far we can go.
Good. Knock on wood. I have you back in December, and you're holding your little NPC. I should say, your little pro
Hey,
card in your hand.
hey, we'll have to celebrate. I mean, if it happens, I'll give you a call straight away, Sean. You won't believe what just happened.
Oh man, Kennedy, it's been a really, really great conversation. Is there anything else that maybe you want to get off your chest? Anything that you want to talk about as we wind down?
um, I'd say not really. I'd say, like, for people watching, I'm sure they're bodybuilders like me, that are watching this, or people who are just starting out in lifting. If you have a dream or you have a goal, just keep pushing at it. Take it one day at a time. You may feel like you are not close to the goal yet. You may feel like the goal seems so far away, but if you keep working at it one day at a time, trust me, you're going to look back a year, 2 years from now, and you're going to say, wow, I've achieved a lot. And you give yourself a pat on the back. So that's my advice to you guys, you know.
Awesome, Kennedy. Where can people find you? Plug your social media if you have any websites, YouTube channels, anything whatsoever.
So typically people can find me on Instagram. I typically run through Instagram a lot. Colossus_Ken. So that's a COLLOSUS_Ken at Instagram typically. So that's where you can find me. Feel free to shoot me a DM. And if you ever want to talk about anything, I'm pretty much on there, and I interact with people a lot and just get to know people. So that's where you find me. I am working on a YouTube probably for this year, probably a prep series. So you may see something with YouTube. So if you're on Instagram, you definitely see the updates of what's coming down the pipeline.
Is Apollon your main gym, or do you bop around to a few different gyms?
Now, so Apollon is the main gym right now.
Awesome.
In prep, you need a sanctuary, and I can spend another hour ranting about commercial gyms, and
Yep.
so when you need a place where there's serious lifters, It's a serious atmosphere, and when you're in prep, you need that kind of battle state, and Apollon provides me that. It provides me that environment. So Apollon is my main gym. I'll go to a commercial gym, do my cardio there, or if I'm
Yeah.
doing arms, I'll go there and do that. But for everything serious, Apollon is the main place. So if you're ever in the New Jersey area, you want to see me, come to Apollon. We'll get a session in over there.
Did you go in yesterday for the event or no? Did you steer
I
clear?
was I was there. I went in the morning. Rob was there. Caroline was there. There were a lot of people. There
Was
were a lot
there?
of Yeah, there were a lot of people over there. I think even Guy Sister Nino showed up.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, at some point when I was leaving. So yeah, there were a lot of people. I was there for the event. It was wonderful. I mean, Rob and Caroline, they're doing great stuff down
Yeah.
there over at Pollen Gym. They give to the community. And for people that don't know that are watching, Rob is Ukrainian with the war that's going on between Russia and Ukraine. So it was Ukraine's Independence Day yesterday. So we went down, supported them. They had a couple of shirts, bought a couple of shirts. Just support the brand. Support the
Yeah.
brand. These guys give back to our community, so we got to give back to them too whenever we can get a chance.
Yeah, I agree. Robic's like a brother to me. So is Carolina, like a sister. I've known Robic for a while now, and he and I talk daily. We're like two peas in the pod.
Awesome. Yeah. He's a great guy. We've been, I just started to get to know him,
Yep.
so we started talking, the past couple of weeks. So, we're getting to know each other, and, I like what he's about. He's a straight shooter. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He tells you as it is. And I really like that about him. I
That's
really like
it.
that.
And sometimes
Yeah.
people misinterpret that. He knows it as just being rude and arrogant. And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
it's a New York, New Jersey thing. Just give it to me straight. Don't
exactly.
sugarcoat it. And I respect the hell out of you for it.
Exactly. Just tell me as it is. And that way we know where we stand.
Yes.
We know what's going on. And like you said, it's a New Jersey, New York thing, but also we're in an industry where people like to be, people like a pat on the back. People like to have people sing praises about them, even when it's not deserved. So he's not that kind of person. Typically when you're a big guy or like you're a fit person, people around you tend to, you know, sugar you up a lot. So
Yep.
some people can take criticism, but he's not like that. He would give it a criticism where it's due. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. I think people, when you have someone in your corner that does that, you should appreciate them, because those are the people that are telling you the truth, not the people that are always like, oh, you look great. It's those people that you need in your corner that are going to tell you the truth about what's really going on.
Amen,
So
brother.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Well, Kennedy, again, it's truly been a pleasure, my friend. For anybody that's listening to this on any of the audio platforms, please do give us a review. Helps the algorithm. And as always, you can follow me on Supptalk _radio. As always, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Take care, guys.